I'm going to try to keep this tight, and I'm going to do a 15 hopefully minute video of the part 5 series of the first mockumentary analysis. And this is about the documentary that was the first documentary aired, or first real public campaign aired, about Nut and Todger's courtship and her whole identity. Since they got together in 2016. This documentary aired on October the 28th, 2017. So really by mid 2017 they had this documentary filmed. So if you think about that, that's just over a year since they were actually together, that was aired. But what's interesting is BBC, and if you know about BBC, you know, Savile, Tavistock, almost everything that's ghastly is from BBC, and it's a very, very controlled, I wouldn't call it journalism, I would call it some sort of intelligence operation. They said on November 27th, 2017, the story was that Todge and Nut started dating in October 2016. So they hadn't even got that right. So this is November 27th, 2017. That's been said. And then October the 31st, was it, in 2016, you had Camilla Tumani from Daily Express stating that they met in Toronto Invictus Games, May 2016. But just imagine that this is the story at this point, because as I keep saying, this just proves over and over that this whole relationship is orchestrated. That they met in October 2016, and by mid 2017, they had a filming of a documentary. Now, this documentary was to be aired intentionally just before the engagement was announced. It was to actually capture the events of the narrative leading up to that engagement, and the foretold events that will take place in the future, before the wedding, the proposal, the bullying, the suicide ideation, the fake kids, and the fake Megxit. And the engagement was officially announced on the 27th of October 2017. So this is BBC on the day stated this, that they met in October 2016. So what is interesting is that this documentary was created before they even know about an engagement, or knew that Todge and Nut would actually be staying together, that they had a solid relationship, that it was credible, that it was legitimate, which really it can't be. Just logically thinking about this, it's just a full creation, and all about planning, and all a PR media campaign, the whole entire shenanigans of it, starting from the public launch by October the 31st, 2016. So I think that's a good start. Now, this has to be an intelligence operation, what's gone down, this whole complete and utter orchestration. The construct of Nut being built, it doesn't just extend, it just isn't solely about her. It extends out to her father, and to her paternal family, and also to her mother and her maternal family. Those lineages and genealogy that is definitely heavily, well, it should be questioned, which I have just, I guess, partaken in a little bit of that publicly on YouTube last night through my community page regarding Doria's mother and grandmother. But I have done much more work regarding that, but I haven't really discussed anything more than just that at this point. But this has to be an intelligence operation. Not only that, it's done across the UK, the US. Well, I mean globally, but physically, it's had to have been controlled in Canada, in Australia, in the UK, and the US. Did I say the US? Anyway, it's a very big operation. It's a large scale operation. You're talking about the building of Nut since I'm looking at probably 2010, 2011-ish, 2012-ish. And then not 2012 because Suits was in 2011. So before that, so probably 2010. And from there up. So while I think Todge was still with his first girlfriend. Was that when they were together? I think it was. Yeah. And then you've got the builds of everything else, and also the fake living situations and the relocations, and then all the people involved in all of these organizations, Aspen, Travelists, Earthshot, all of these organizations that are connected to Megxit. The documentary was put out at that time because there was there were a mix of narratives being played out. As you can see, anyone could choose within the UK that it was either May or October or June that Nut and Todge met in 2016, because it was a complete and utter sham. But they wanted to really brainwash and portray how the public must view the couple's solo and joint identities, especially what is to come, and how to look at them when they're engaged, and how to look at them as a relationship, as a duo, and in the future. And what was let out the bag most of all during this documentary, and why it's been hidden really from public view if you don't go searching for it, is because of how controlled and steered the actual narrative is in this documentary. It talks about Nut being an asset. It talks about her being a recruit. It actually says that in regards to the asset, the royal family's greatest asset. It goes back to her lineage, which it seems to be false. Doesn't seem to really tell us a story other than a general depiction of mixed race African American, when really Nut is just an American. We really don't know who Nut is. We don't know her background. We don't know her origins whatsoever. It seems completely made up and fabricated at this point. And so she's been completely created. And the level of control within this documentary, in this narrative, and these scripts is very evident. They call her possibly the greatest asset, being mixed race, Wallace 2.0 divorcee, a divorce that never happened, a marriage that never happened, being African American, which is questionable considering there's nothing that really traces her back to being African, really, of any importance. She doesn't state she's African American other than when she is putting on this political identity. But that is the way she needs to be portrayed for the future of her public appearances and the relationship. And they wanted you to have that embedded, in your mind, that's how it always was, and it's organic and it's natural and it's to be normalized and accepted. They talk about the global humanitarian platform that Todge and Nut will be on, that they're going to go their separate ways, because she's a strong, independent woman, but one that also still needs to be managed. And they talk about what else? That she needs to be managed, but she can be managed. So the fact that she's being managed and by something else higher that Jobson, that royal expert, knows about, can only be the palace. And these are the powers that have made her as to what she is, and keep steering public opinion of her identity and of their son and her identity as a joint couple. That's why there's this now professional separation, supposedly, because this whole PR campaign has been a collective identity. Even her coat of arms wasn't her own. It was of his. And there's stuff like that that's really portrayed as she is his identity. And so, she's not particularly liable for anything, and he isn't either. It's kind of like they negate each other in this kind of scenario. And they talk about, how they're going to go their separate ways and modernize the royal family. That was the whole real point of this as well, was that this couple is meant to modernize the royal family and bring forth the globalist monarchy into America. That is really the truth of it. They're meant to be going and enjoying their own causes, their own charities. This was what was already being said in, before their engagement, before they had children. Remember, that was their excuse about their children and their safety, and then the wife's safety. And this is all being said beforehand, that this was all going to happen, that Megxit was going to happen, that this was all arranged, and they were just laying it out, narrating it for us. I think really that's the main points that need to be driven home. Another really key point is the fact that Nut didn't they really used Diana, and they really used the victim savior narrative of both of them. The point for Nut as well was to also rebrand Todge. Todge, they had controlled his branding and his identity since probably around 2006-ish, before he went to the military. The military was just a complete staging to rebrand himself. I think he got himself into really deep trouble, possibly criminally. I have no idea, but something happened around that time, and they've had to rebrand him very, very, very urgently. I don't even know if his first girlfriend was legitimate or genuine. I really don't at this point, because these 360s involved having these blonde, likable girlfriends that turned him around. I'm really not sure if they were genuine. I don't think Cressida was, but I don't know if his first girlfriend was. And with the military, that definitely wasn't genuine. So Nut is all a part about that rebranding, and to bring him into a validating, credible, legitimate global standing, which has been successful. You can talk about it all you want and say, well, I don't understand the point of all of this. Why did this happen if they fail miserably? Do you see them failing miserably at it? because I don't. Because everything's happened. No one's questioned shit. Everyone, they've gotten away with it. And they're still portraying these characters and these identities in this PR campaign. And when it doesn't work out, they just manipulate it in a different way. And they say, oh yeah, now they're legally separating now, or they're professionally separating. Soon it'll be a divorce. Soon it'll be whatever. They did it to Kate with her her operation or whatever, while they were, commercially using her name to go into America and buying up trademarks for propaganda under a charity of hers and her husband's. So they can do it to anyone, and they use anyone. And that's very clear as well in the documentary. Anyway, a major point is that Nut was never intimidated by the publicity, by the media. And they have a contradiction in the documentary where they say she was never intimidated by it, and that the royal family, like Kate and so forth, could learn a thing or two from her because she handles the media with ease, calmly, confidently, because she is an actress and she comes from that background. So that then contradicts the whole story of her ever being a victim of the media, of her ever being a victim of social media, of her ever being a victim of anything, to be honest. They don't see that they've bulletproofed her in the identity branding that they gave her. At the same time, they've just the complete irony and the hypocrisy of then stating that a statement was given out by Todge, in 2016 because she was harassed and harangued, and then they've done a court case, and then, Megxit has happened because of all this. It's an absolute sham. So that's really important. You know what? This is 10 minutes. I could have gone into each and every part, and I would have. If you would like me to do that as well, I can, and go through everything. But really, that's just kind of like the meat and bones of that documentary, is that they really wanted to sell who Nut was, a strong, independent, mixed-race woman, humanitarian. They also another key point is that they basically told us that none of those humanitarian projects that she had was really a part of her identity. She also said she was the opposite of her mother. So laid back, calm, collected, chill, free-spirited. That's not who she is. She said that in an interview before she launched the British royal family launched her new identity. She said that in an interview. So that contradicts also that whole identity as well. So there is really nothing we know about this woman. Everything has been fabricated and created for an agenda, for a means. And it's to ensure the royal family can move to America successfully, and to ensure that the throne was kept and successfully by Charles when he became king. There's many reasons, but those are the main ones. They said in the mockumentary that she also that the UN project, or the UN project that she became an advocate for, not an ambassador for, they just made up a role for her, was an offer. So that really tells us that these are all palace orchestrations as well to build up her identity. You have people like Katie Nicholl and Camilla Toumani literally stating one narrative in this documentary, like how they met, and what sort of relationship it is, and then they completely go backward within a year or so and tell you a different narrative. That's how orchestrated this whole schmozzle is, this whole relationship, this whole everything from the very beginning. I can't tell you how big this is. This is huge. This is the biggest, honestly, the biggest con of the century. Is just how immense this whole situation is that has been created by the British monarchy in order to become successful globalists and push globalist agenda. You have to remember that Charles is the patron of the Pilgrim Society. He is the patron of the very foundation that created the Council of Foreign Relations in America, that created the Fed, and that the whole point of that foundation is to establish an Anglo-American empire or an Anglo-American relationship. And he is the patron. Every monarch for over 100 years has been the patron of that society. He is the patron for this Anglo-American relationship and this empire that has been built for over a century. Now, that is the power we speak of here, and that I speak of here. This is what the reality is, and this is nothing more but an orchestration. Putting it simply, if you have any questions, I'm trying to keep it short. I'm not very good at it. If you have any questions, put a comment down below and I'll answer as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.